Hello, everybody. Welcome to Didi Hirsch's Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine update. We did a prior presentation on Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. We gave a lot of information there about different vaccines. So here we want to just focus on Johnson & Johnson. This has a newer emergency use authorization, and we want to update you with some information about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so first of all, what's different about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? A few different things. One is it's one shot. At this point, it's one shot. The other vaccines that we have are 2 shots each. So one shot in some ways makes it a little bit easier to give it. It also can be stored in a regular refrigerator. So it doesn't need special, very cold refrigerators. It can be stored in a regular refrigerator for up to 3 months. So in multiple ways, it's a little bit easier to use. It's also a little bit different in how it works. It uses what we call a viral vector. So this is a type of virus called an adenovirus, which can sometimes cause cold symptoms, but it's modified. So it's modified to not cause illness and to not replicate. So basically what it does is it just delivers genetic code. In some ways, it's similar to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, but it's just a little bit way of delivering the genetic code. So it delivers genetic code to your body then makes a small part of the COVID virus, which is the spike protein, and then your body practices destroying that part of the virus, and then it's protected in the future. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine got emergency use authorization for people 18 and over. So similar to the Moderna vaccine, different from the Pfizer vaccine, which is 16 and above. So this one is 18 and above, and studied in tens of thousands of people, similar to the other vaccines. So 43,000 patients studied across ages, genders, ethnicities, and they also allowed people in with stable medical conditions. So we know that it works across a wide range of people. And basically what they found is they looked at a few different things. The main outcome that they were looking at was moderate to severe COVID. So this is a little bit different from the other ones. The other ones were looking for symptomatic COVID. This is a little bit higher bar of moderate to severe COVID. And basically what they found is, half the people got placebo, half the people got the vaccine out of the 43,000. And in the placebo group, 193 people got moderate to severe COVID and only 66 in the vaccine group. So impressive numbers, 66% effective when you're looking at it from that perspective. In the US, it's a little bit higher at 72%. And this study was done throughout the Americas and then also in South Africa. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's important because there were certain variants. It was tested on various variants, including the South African variant, Brazilian, and then ones that are in the US as well. They also looked at severe COVID, and they found 34 cases in the placebo group and only 5 in the vaccine group. So very effective for severe COVID, 85% effective. And finally, they found it to be 100% effective against hospitalization and death. So great news there as far as being able to protect people from hospitalization and death. In the placebo group, 16 people got hospitalized, 5 people died, and no people were hospitalized or died in the vaccine group. So one of the really big questions that people have when they're hearing some of these numbers and maybe reading a story about it is, well, what about the efficacy? So I'm hearing 66% here, the other ones are like 95%. So shouldn't I get the other ones? Well, great question. The answer is a little bit complicated because it's hard to compare these different vaccines for a few different reasons. One is that Johnson & Johnson is 1 shot. The other ones are 2. There's actually some future testing for Johnson & Johnson to see if 2 shots is better. And maybe it will be, we'll see. Another thing is that it's a different time and place, right? So Johnson & Johnson was done later. Variants there's much more variants throughout the world now. And so there's more variants in these studies, right? So we don't have as much data on some of the other vaccines as far as how well they do in variants. We have some data about that, but it's a little bit hard to compare because of that. Good news about Johnson & Johnson is that it was tested in a fair amount of people with variants, and it did fairly well, right? So there's some really good news there. Yeah, so a little bit hard to compare. One key thing to take away, though, is that when we look at all the different vaccines, when we look at all the ones that have been tested so far, some of the main ones, across tens of thousands of people. No people have been hospitalized for COVID who got the vaccine. No people have died from COVID who got the vaccine. No people have died from the vaccine in these studies. So all this is very great news across all the different vaccines. So let's talk a little bit about side effects, very similar to some of the other ones. In some ways, maybe a little bit less because you're not getting that second shot at this point. And that's typically when people would have a little bit more side effects from the other vaccines. But similar side effects, generally mild to moderate if you get them, pain at the injection site, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, nausea, usually pretty short-lived, around 1 to 2 days. All right, so they also looked at serious adverse events and basically found similar rates in the placebo group and the vaccine group. So 0.4% in both groups. They did note though, for a few different things, they saw higher levels in the vaccine group. These are small numbers relative to that 43,000 people that were in the study, but they found thrombotic events 11 versus 3, seizures 4 versus 1, ringing in the ears 6 versus 0, and hives 5 versus 1. Hard to know what to make out of this. We're going to need more time, like a lot of the things with these different vaccines. We need more studies. We need more time. We're going to learn more, but these numbers are relatively very small. All right, so contraindication, there's main contraindication for Johnson & Johnson, which is a severe allergy to any of the components of the vaccine, which are listed here. Various things listed here. Generally, people would know if they have an allergy to any of these things. So one big question that's come up about Johnson & Johnson, may have seen in the news, is the question around use of cell lines. So when we talk about cell lines, basically what that means is a cell line is a cell that's been grown and has replicated over and over again. So there's now many cells that have grown from the original cells. And these cell lines are generally from aborted fetuses. It's not clear depending on which cell line they're using. Sometimes it's from a spontaneous abortion, sometimes so natural abortion, sometimes it's from an elective abortion. And this is somewhat common for various vaccines as far as how they're able to grow the vaccines or make the vaccines. So some people have had questions about this and kind of the morality of this. So the Vatican actually put out a statement about this. And what they said was that when ethically irreproachable COVID-19 vaccines are not available, including when people are not allowed to choose, it is morally acceptable. So from the Vatican's viewpoint, it is morally acceptable when you don't have a choice. So you could imagine lots of situations where you may not have a choice. I think in general now people are signing up whenever they can. And some places you can have a choice, but some places you may not. So definitely something to think about. Something the Vatican also brought up, and I think is an important point, is to really think about when we're thinking about morality in general and use of vaccines, thinking about the morality of protecting others, right? And the good that can come out of it. And in some ways, moral responsibility of protecting others by getting vaccinated and potentially saving lives by doing so. So, some things to consider there, but some people had questions about it. Hopefully that helps to clarify that question. All right, so final thing about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, I think this is like the biggest question that people have is, well, which one should I get? And for me, the bottom line, when I'm thinking about, what I'm going to recommend to my family members who are not vaccinated yet, I'm going to say, get the one that's available to you, right? So whichever one you can get it. Do it as fast as possible. If you have a choice, maybe think about it a little bit more and maybe one makes more sense for you or not. Most people aren't going to have that much of a choice. So get the one that's available. Don't wait. Do it as soon as possible. They all work well, especially going back to the hospitalization and deaths, right? In these studies, no hospitalizations, no deaths in people that got the vaccines. Again, it's a little bit hard to compare the efficacy because they just don't totally match up as far as the endpoints. And we're going to continue to learn more, right? We're still relatively new as far as even the COVID pandemic. We're learning more all the time and we're getting better all the time at our response. But we're going to continue to learn more. Johnson & Johnson is testing 2 doses and seeing if that is potentially more efficacious. And people may have heard too about Moderna and other things. Moderna is testing a booster as well to see if getting a booster shot would be helpful, and potentially combining that with the original vaccine to see if that's helpful as well. So more to come as we get more information. We will be hopefully sending that to you all. Thank you very much.